G'day guys and welcome back to Hayes Homestead. I ordered a little bit of sunshine so I could record the introduction because it has been absolutely hammering it down for the last few days and it is not going to stop for another few days. I thought I'd take this opportunity to bask in the sunshine and tell you what's coming up in today's episode. So in the last episode we sheeted the office and we insulated the office, not in that order obviously, that would be really difficult. Now we need to paint it. So to paint it I've had to get in a little bit of help because it just gets quicker with two, really. Well, no surprises who's going to help me because I think you all figured it out from the last one. So I mean there's not really much left to do but to just tear into it, because the sooner we get it painted, the sooner we can do the floor, the sooner we can put the furniture in, and the sooner we can start using it, and the sooner we can get onto other projects. So yeah, let's just smash through it and see where we go. Let's go. So you might have already guessed I've enlisted some help to do the painting, but I will be doing the undercoat purely because this will allow me to be able to see if I've missed any nicks or blemishes in the walls, and then I can just patch those up before we start putting the colour on. Because if the colour goes on and I see little things like that, it'll annoy me and then I'll have to repair it and then paint it again, etc. And then still that might stand out. So a bit of a perfectionist in that regard, years in kitchens and then on construction sites, I kind of like that attention to detail. I think we're ready to go. Let's just crack on with it because I reckon we can get the coat on. Everything's been washed, sanded. There's literally nothing left to do, but get on with it. You may recall in my last video I was talking about dressing the cornice in a timber trim. Now there's a couple of reasons why we're doing this. The timber trim is a lot cheaper than hiring a plaster to do ornate plastering around your room. Number two, this allows us to get a country sort of colonial look that we're going for without breaking the bank, because these are about 50 bucks a stick, which isn't that expensive if you consider that a plasterer would cost a hell of a lot more per meter. But there is one really important thing you have to remember before putting dressed untreated timber on your walls, and that is to to prime it all the way around before you start working with it. Once it's on the wall, this bare edge cannot be painted. And if you only paint the front, that's not going to seal it properly, because any moisture that gets in behind it is going to still get into the wood, and that will cause problems later on. So priming it is going to decrease any risk of shrinkage, bowing, or any kind of other problems that we might experience later on should we have left it bare. So covering our asses, we primed it up for the sake of a quick 30-minute job, 40-minute job to prime all this. It's going to save you a lot of heartache down the line if you end up getting moisture in the room. So it's a no-brainer. So some of you are probably wondering why I've set this up in the kitchen. Well, this is actually the spare kitchen, or the kitchen next door. Yesterday, it absolutely smashed it down. It's going to rain again today, and it's going to rain for the next few days, which is great because we love rain and we like the water tanks being filled up. But it does mean it's too wet outside because this is not treated and we need it primed and ready to go. So just moved it indoors, drop sheet down, a couple of old chairs. I'd say we're good to go. That way we can keep working while it's raining, and then we don't lose any progress. As we're in the cottage next door, and Danny and I are both going to be painting the office, I needed somewhere safe to leave Indy while we were in the room next door. So another baby prison it is. I know it's not really a conventional setup, but if we need to reinforce it with some chairs we will, but those suction cups are really strong. Quick road test, good to go. Okay, we've got a nappy bag, we've got a water. Okay, perfect. Do you want to get her in the car? So we let that first coat dry overnight, and now we're going to do the second coat. Before we do, we have to key it back with a bit of sandpaper, keying a car. It's going to rough up the surface, make the next coat bond to it really, really well. So quite an essential step, so we're going to get through that so we can get our second coat finished today. So my beautiful wife, in all her infinite wisdom, has reminded me that I have overlooked the window frame, because we do want to get all of the painting and sanding and everything done before we get the floor varnished, because I don't want to be getting it messy or ruined before we've had a chance to enjoy it. So not a problem, we'll just get it sanded down and we can get it painted so it matches all the moulding and the architrave that we're going to put up in the room. So let's just crack on with it. Are you sitting comfortably? Good, because it's story time. Yesterday I came out to my ute and realised it had a real janky lean, which led me down a rabbit hole of how much is this going to cost and what am I going to need to fix it. So I called around some places and they said, do you have leaf springs or coil springs? I was like, neither of them. Confused as hell, I had to do some more digging to find out that actually this model has something called a torsion bar. Who knew? Not me. While searching for a video online on how to replace them, I stumbled across a video where a guy actually adjusts the ride height of his front suspension by adjusting the torsion bar. Well, that sounds like something I can do, so let's give that a go. We jack the front end to take the load off and gather the essentials. Sanding back between coats isn't just good for coat adhesion, but it also helps the moulding retain its detail. So you can get rid of any brush strokes or pooling that you may have gotten when you did the prime coat that you may have missed sanding it the first time round. But that's all good. That's why we do the extra coat, so we can get rid of those details. So when it goes up on the wall, it's going to look really crisp. As well as the timber mouldings, we've also got to paint the architrave and skirting. I bought this stuff pre-primed, so the quality is already very smooth. Just got to key it back and get on with the undercoat. I mean, it couldn't be easier. So there is one last colour that we need to put on the timber moulding, the architrave and the skirting, and that is this nut oil brown colour that we got, that we've mixed a small amount of gold flock into to get that brassy antique sort of look. So we're going to be dry brushing it onto the mouldings. That should give us a really nice antiquing look without standing out too much. So as previously mentioned, this is going up around the cornice, and the reason that we've done this is because we've gone with a dark colour on the wall, dark colour on the ceiling. These areas up here are naturally quite dark anyway, and because the room is already quite small, we don't want it to feel too stuffy. So by adding these accents up in the top of the room, we're going to break up the corners and stop it from feeling quite so small. And then a nice big mirror on this wall behind me that's opposite the window over there is going to help the room feel a lot bigger. So we'll still get those studio vibes without it feeling too claustrophobic. If you are considering attempting something like this, I'll offer up a couple of tips, just a couple of things that I find quite useful about doing these sorts of dry brushing techniques. So one thing I will say is make sure your brush is completely dry of paint, so as you're not actually leaving large swathes of paint. So you can see how the cloth only has a little bit of paint on it, and you can see the texture of the cloth underneath. This is pretty much the desired result that you're looking for when loading your brush. Having a bag of rags and just cleaning your brush on that before actually applying it to your moulding, it can help make sure that you don't ruin your moulding before you've had a chance to actually put it on the wall. So you can see the brush is really dry, and we're just going to work with the very tips of the bristles, gently brushing across the profile. So as we brush across, it's going to highlight the profile of the timber. This will give us our highlights, and then afterwards we come back through with the direction of the timber to give us our lowlights. So each time you stroke, as the bristles give off a little bit of paint on the timber, because you're only using the bristles, it misses all the bits behind the profile. So then you're just going to gently come back through, really light sweeping motion, and just gently fill in those low lights. So now you can see that the highlights are really prominent, and across here the low lights still have a little bit of color in them, but it's not as prominent as the feature, so it gives it that nice antique brassy sort of shadowy effect, which is what we were going for. So I'm pretty happy with that. I guess we better crack on. Ooh, side quest. This one's pretty simple actually. Danny really hated the shower, so instinctively she would ask me to find a replacement one every time I went to Bunnings, until naturally I bought one to replace it with. In between coats in the office, this one was pretty easy to knock out, and I managed to do this while they had a nap. So I'm using the mitre box to make the mitre cuts, because I know that this is very square and it's better than me lugging it all to the workshop or lugging my saw here, which is just annoying. I've put some packers in here, so this is level. So then when I put this in, I have a really good 90-degree edge that's square. And then when I put my piece of timber in, I have a perfect 45 on a square sat piece of timber. So I have the rebate in here. I want to be cutting into here because this is the inside edge. This edge has to be shorter. So here is my mark, and I line it up with the cut. And then I use a couple of packers to prop the recess so then it sits perfectly square. Now we're ready to make our cut. So we're mounting the blind in the office because the family are coming to stay this weekend and this will be used as a bedroom. We never had a curtain here before and it does get quite bright in the morning, so this is actually going to be quite a welcome change. The blind I'm using is exactly 1800mm across and my recess is 1813, which is actually pretty good news because that means I've got an extra 6.5mm on either side to play with, whereas if it was exactly 1800 it could have been a tight squeeze and it may have been a bit stiff. I've marked out on the frame where I need to pre-drill my holes. These brackets come with these lovely slotted holes, so I can screw them in, mount my blind, adjust it up, and then fit them off. So it should be a pretty easy job. It's going to look great. So what I really like about this blind is it comes with this shade blind, which, as you can see, provides shade. So when it's a bit bright in the day or even brighter in the afternoon because the sun sets over in that direction, you can still enjoy the view without it being too bright. And then the blackout blind on top really makes sure that the room gets quite dark. So actually, I'm pretty happy with that. It wasn't even expensive either. I think less than $100, I think. That really is all we have time for in this episode, and I am cutting this one down to the wire because it took me a week longer to do this than initially planned, just because Indy and Danny have been unwell for a few days there. So I was next door doing nappy changes, making food, etc., or I was off fixing the ute. On that note, after I did adjust my suspension, fear not, I did get a wheel alignment, and while I was there, they said that there was a crucial part that I really needed to replace. So if you know what one of these is, leave it in the comments. It's going to be interesting because I've never had to do this before. It looks simple, but I don't have a whole lot of experience working on ute, so it's probably going to be quite interesting.
Spoiler alert, I did it that afternoon and it was simple, but it wasn't easy.
Where does that leave us with the office? As you can see, the walls are done and the trim is around the top of the room. All we have to do now is sand back the floor, stain it, and then we've got to varnish it, which is going to take about a week to cure, which means we can't come in here for at least 7 days while it cures fully. Not a big drama. We are going to be in the workshop cutting up all the timber and all the panels that we're going to be using for the desks and the window seat and the shelving. So a lot to do and a lot going on. So hopefully while this is curing, we can get all of the furniture cut, jointed, oiled and ready to go. So when all of that is cured and the floor is cured, we can come in here, fit that off, architrave, skirting, bang, bang, done, finished. With autumn just around the corner, we are starting to see an abundance of wildlife here, and that is because there is an abundance of food. We are so lucky that we get to see such beautiful creatures so close to where we live, and we are so excited to share those with you, and hopefully now to a much higher quality. Thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate you tuning into the channel, and we'll catch you in the next one. See you around.